All right, hello, and thank you for being here today. I want to share with you a newer program at the University of North Florida. It's the Post-Baccalaureate Certificate in Deaf Education. My name is Caroline Guardino, and I'm an associate professor, and I work with my colleague, Dr. Jennifer Renee Kilpatrick. The two of us are both tenured track and tenured faculty. And we come from different sides of the United States, which makes it very nice when we're talking about deaf education, because we can pretty much refer people to programs from coast to coast. We both have different lines of research. There's a slight overlap in the sense that I also look at literacy from alternative methods using graphic novels and other types of alternative literacy approaches. I also am highly invested in better understanding and providing strategies to teachers who work with students who are deaf with disabilities, as well as those students who are deaf multilingual learners, and they come from families where their parents don't speak English at home, nor do they use ASL. My colleague does research in both language and literacy, and we both have interests internationally, and I'll share a little bit about that later on in this presentation. So at the University of North Florida, we have three distinct programs. At the undergraduate level, we have a major, so it's a bachelor's in deaf education. We also have a minor, and that typically is for students who are struggling to pass the general knowledge exam. So they take a foundation of courses and they major in something different, typically disability services, or sometimes interdisciplinary, where they're crafting their own major and using deaf education as a minor. We also have professionals who are in the interpreting program and they're interested in deaf education, so they might take deaf education as a minor, or they're taking ASL classes and they're not sure what they want to do with their career, so they start off in the ASL, in the deaf education minor, and then pass the GK exam and then rise up to being an undergraduate in the bachelor's program. But here today, we're going to talk about the post-baccalaureate certificate program, which I am very passionate about. Where this journey started was the Florida Department of Education came to me and asked if we could help end the teacher shortage in the state of Florida. And I thought one of the easiest or quickest ways, maybe not easy, but the quickest way is to provide those who are currently working with deaf students or have exposure to deaf students and interest in working with deaf students, have a bachelor's degree, and what they need in order to be a certificated teacher of the deaf is to pass the Florida Teacher Certification Exam. And so we pulled what we thought were the five most important classes in this program, and we converted them to online classes, meeting the Quality Matters standards, which is a national level of standards for online learning. So I'll go into more detail about the program now. So it's a one-year program. You can enter at any time. There is a timeline that the university advertises for application deadlines, but you can push that deadline. I've actually had students who apply to the program the week before classes start. So $35 application fee, and then they start the online classes the following week. So although there is a deadline, you could really push that in terms of for this program, because we are not let me see what would be the appropriate terminology, excluding anybody from the program. If you have a bachelor's degree, then you're included. If you're interested in working with deaf students, then you're included. If you have exposure or don't have exposure, but maybe it was a family member or a friend's family member, and you just want to learn more about deaf education, but you're flirting with the idea of becoming a certificated teacher, then this would be a great program for you. If you already hold a certification and you are teaching deaf students, I have had people contact me, and I don't feel that this program would offer you more knowledge than what you need. I would suggest going into a master's program if you have a bachelor's degree and you're already teaching students who are deaf. However, if it's something that you're interested in or you've been assigned to, so for example, we have students in the program who were educational interpreters, and then the teacher of the deaf in the classroom where they worked left in the middle of the school year, and the school district said, let's just put the interpreter in the teacher's position. And the interpreter's like, wait a second, I don't know how to be a teacher of the deaf. So this is like perfect program for somebody like that. We also have special education teachers who've had a deaf student in their classroom, and they thought, you know, I want a career change. I want to work with deaf students. I was really interested in working with that teacher of the deaf, and so they make that transition as well. So there's several reasons why one would pursue the post-baccalaureate certificate in deaf education, but certainly if you have a passion and an interest, it wouldn't take you long over the course of 1 year to complete this program. It's also a part-time program because full-time is considered 3 or 4 courses per semester, and we offer 1 or 2. So it's 5 courses across a year's time, and all of them are online. So our program is a comprehensive program, and so when you're in those courses, the mindset is that you could work across all types of programs. We do not require you to have a deep understanding of American Sign Language. A basic understanding would be helpful. It's not mandatory, but it does help when you're trying to make that application, especially in reading to students who are deaf and hard of hearing and are using sign language. But we really prepare teachers to experience what is across the spectrum. And so from students who are using listening spoken language and use advanced technology, to those students who are culturally immersed at a school for the deaf and blind and using predominantly American Sign Language as their mode of communication. And we also speak to deaf education in terms of the various settings. So the self-contained classrooms, we've got resource classrooms, inclusive classrooms, itinerant teaching. And so you'll see all types of the spectrum in deaf education addressed throughout the courses. So I already spoke of the high quality designation. These are courses, so the 5 courses went through like a standards analysis. And so they took the online learning standards that are considered high quality at the national standards, and they looked at the components in the class, the accessibility, the differentiation of presenting the materials. So we'll have videos, we've got reading materials, we might have websites that you can explore. And so really looking at that and creating a template so that when you're in one class and you move on to the next class, you know what to expect, because there's a system in the way that these classes are set up. It makes it so that it's easy for the learner to understand what is coming next, and it's predictable. So that was really important, because we know that this is not your only job. If you sign up for the post-baccalaureate certificate program, most likely you're working full-time. And so, or it could be that you have children at home and you're pursuing a profession when the children are ready to go to school, or whatever your situation is. We know this is not the only thing that you're doing. And so we want to respect and make it as easy as possible for you to absorb that coursework, interact with that coursework, and feel successful within the program. And so now I want to look through, okay, so the 5 courses that we chose are aligned with the Florida DOE K-12 deaf and hard of hearing teaching competencies. So these competencies, we looked at the courses and we looked at the competencies and we align them, making sure that all of those competencies that need to be addressed in order to pass your teacher certification exam are addressed within these 5 courses. So I want to take a few minutes to go over the classes with you so you could understand what you'll be learning. In the fall, right now we currently offer the psychology and education of the deaf, as well as the listening and spoken language course. First, I'll go over this course, and it's an amazing foundation course. Sometimes I think people could pass the certification exam with this one course alone, because there's so much content. But it's an exciting course too, because when you're taking it, learn so much about deaf education that you really feel like you have a better understanding of what your profession is going to look like. So we talk about the history of deaf education, social emotional aspects of being deaf and being in inclusive environments versus the residential school. We invite families to share and talk about their experience having a deaf child. We talk about early intervention, the content area instruction, comparing reading with writing and math with science. We talk about working with other interpreters, other professionals like interpreters and vocational rehabilitation counselors. So really, like I said, this introduction course is gives you a really strong foundation of what deaf education is and what teachers need to know in order to work with these learners. In this class, there is no cost associated with the course materials. That is another area that we're moving into with this program, is to make all of the textbooks free or below $40 per class, which I think is super important, because not only is it financially difficult for many people right now, but if we can give you the information without you having to pay for it, we want you to have that so that you can utilize it when you finish with this program and have those resources when you're actually teaching as well. So this course is also offered in the spring in the fall semester, listening and spoken language strategies. So this is where we're creating that balance, right? And so in the introductory course, we taught you across the spectrum, but right now in this course, we really want you to be prepared to work with those students who use listening and spoken language. And we provide you with methods for working with those students. We have case studies where you analyze the case study and how would you address that learner and their needs, work with their family. We have interviews of professionals who are deaf themselves and use listening and spoken language, so you get a real firsthand experience with those interviews and seeing how those individuals grew up and managed their education. And then we have you practice using assessments to understand what are the nuances when working and assessing a student who uses listening and spoken language, but also how do we determine what areas that we need to work on with these students when using different types of assessments. And all of the courses really have, like I said, a variety of ways of interacting with the content and ways that the professors will assess your learning. So you'll have discussion boards so that you get to know the other students in the class. You've got different types of assignments and sometimes quizzes and tests. This Deafness and Diversity is offered in the spring. This is also another course that has no cost for the course materials. What is important in this class is you're going to learn about state and federal law, which obviously impact and are crucial to our profession as deaf educators. So we talk about IDEA, we talk about IEPs, 504 plans, IFSPs, and then we talk about what does it look like when deaf students have a disability. And so many people don't quite expect the statistic to be so high, but the truth is that 40 to 50% of students who are deaf have a disability. So they may be deaf with autism, they might have a learning disability or a behavior disorder. And so what we do in this class is we break it down by module. We provide you a book. We also have interviews with the authors of those chapters. We have a lot of interactive assignments. So it might be that you're exploring what are the resources in a state that you plan to work with? Because we know also in this program, not every student is from Florida. And so we want to respect and observe that. And so even if you're planning on moving from Florida and going to another state, that's something that we address in this program, is that we want to make it apply to you. And so it doesn't make sense if you're not in Florida to go explore Florida resources when in actuality, you're living in Colorado, and that's an area in which you're going to have to collaborate with other professionals. And so we also have case studies as well, and the application of case studies, because I think I froze, so I just paused there. So when we look at case studies, that gives us a real true picture of the students that we are working with. But we know in deaf education, the we often say there's a population of one. That's because each student is so unique. And so although we provide you with case studies, obviously every case is going to be different depending on the students in your classroom. Audiology and speech science is offered in the summertime. Our summer really starts in May. So that's a May-June class. It's a pretty fast-paced course, but it's hard to fit everything into the fall and spring. And we didn't want to overload the students in the program, so we tried to spread these out throughout the year. So this is a May-June class. What's interesting about audiology and speech science is that we do require you to have experiences with observing an audiologist and a speech and language pathologist. Since things have changed within this last year, we instead invited those professionals to come in to Zoom enrichment sessions where students were able to observe the audiologist, ask questions to the audiologist and the speech and language pathologist. We had audiologists down to from the district, and those that were working at clinics, and those that were working in a hospital setting. So that was pretty exciting and interesting for the students. We also do a lot of troubleshooting of technology, of the hearing devices. And if possible, we have you work with an audiologist to understand how is hearing tested. And if you're in the Jacksonville area, we do workshops where you can come in and we can test your hearing and you learn how to test other students' hearing. And we've had students attend those sessions virtually as well to get an idea of how does that look when you're using an audiometer. This is a self-paced class. So the other classes that I just reviewed are not so much self-paced. They have a module that releases every week, and then you work through it. And so we can kind of monitor how students are doing. But this is self-paced, in which case all 6 weeks are open and available for students to move through freely at their time, because it is summertime. And so we don't know if someone's going to be going on a vacation or going to have, an event that comes up. And so we just want everything to be accessible, especially, like I said, during the summertime. And then the last class is reading instruction and assessment for deaf and hard of hearing students. And currently this class is being taught by a teacher who, I think she's actually an administrator now at the Florida School for the Deaf and Blind. So what's really neat about this class is that it gives you the perspective of teaching reading from a teacher who has had that experience and been entrenched and really knows the nuances of teaching reading to students who are deaf. There's a lot of strategies that will be discussed, different types of assessment and how you can use that assessment to plan your instruction and to create intervention opportunities for your students. We look at the research as well. What are those evidence-based practices that we're using in deaf education to teach literacy? The one caveat is that if enrollment is low, this would be the one course that would be substituted for a general ed or a special ed reading class that's also offered in the summertime. But that's not to me a drawback as much, because in and of itself, there are a lot of similarities between teaching reading to the deaf and teaching reading to students who are with typical hearing. But that would be then, a little bit more of an extrapolation for those students if you were in that gen ed reading class. But we work closely with all of the professors at the university. And so I don't think that, like I said, that would be as much of a drawback as perhaps even a benefit. So another thing that we feel highly invested in is that students, although, there's a shortage, right? So when you graduate and you pass the Florida Teacher Certification Exam, you're going to get a job. You're going to get a job. And this is bottom line. Really, I don't know how you couldn't get a job, because there are so many vacancies. But what we do in addition is to have a job fair. It's a virtual job fair. So that shows you what jobs are available. And we invite district coordinators from across the state of Florida. We recruiters from across the United States. And so our job fair will be this on November 17th. And what will happen is we will have recruiters come in, they'll share about their positions, their locations, and try to really get the students excited. Any student who's in the deaf education program can come. So that means the post-baccalaureate students can come, the minors can come, and obviously the majors are present. And so this gives you another bigger picture of what opportunities there are for you after graduating from the program. And I always tell the students, even if you're not close to graduation, come to the job fair, because there's not always the same recruiters, but it gives you an idea of what is happening and how many vacancies there are across the United States and in Florida as well. So this is what I was saying about the international opportunities. We love to travel, both my colleague and I. And so whenever possible, we create opportunities for students to travel with us. We were supposed to go to Australia for the International Congress on the Education of the Deaf in July of 2020, but we're hoping that that happens in July 2021. Regardless, when we are able to travel, we will be taking students places. And so I've taken students to the Philippines to experience deaf education and special education there, as well as Hawaii, because that's sort of a halfway point between Florida and Asia. And so I used to work in Hawaii, and so we would go and do some volunteer hours in Hawaii at the School for the Deaf. Also taken students to Greece, and that was 5 years ago at the International Congress of the Deaf. My colleagues taken students to Haiti a couple times, and we just keep expanding. Wherever we find that there's something that the students can benefit from, we try to make it happen. And so that's pretty exciting. And even students who graduate, so when I took students to Greece, nearly half of the students I took were alum. They came back to go on the trip because they knew, they just were so excited about that opportunity to see deaf education outside of our country. We have ways in which you can see what we're doing. My colleague is much better than I am, probably because she's 10 years younger than me, but she's good about posting on social media and letting people know what we're doing inside the classroom as well as online, and the different, like the job fair and things like that. So if you do have social media, this would be a good way of keeping up with what we're up to. So now what I'd like to do is to really open it up for questions that you might have.
Yeah, so I currently am an educational interpreter. So I've been thinking of switching to DHH teaching. So for this program, do you have to apply to UNF and then apply to the program? How does the application process look?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you apply to UNF and you designate that you are applying for the Post-Baccalaureate Certificate in Deaf Education course. And when you do that, then we will be notified and then you will be admitted. We haven't turned anybody away. It's a bachelor's in any subject as well.
Okay, sorry. I think I had another question, but I forgot it.
That's okay. I'm going to stop sharing because I want to show you the website so that you can click and see a little bit more about the admissions process. So what I typically do is I go to Google and I just search Post-Bac UNF Deaf Ed, and it will come right up. It'll be the first option. And so I'm going to share again so I can show you what this website looks like. And so you could see here are the courses that I just discussed. Here's the high quality designation that gives you more information about that. And so here's where you can click to learn how to apply to the program, and then the cost, how much that costs for in and out of state. Now, one thing I do want to reveal is that, just to be forthright, is that in order to become a teacher of the deaf, I believe not only do you need to pass that certification exam, which these 5 courses will absolutely help you do, but I believe the district will still require you to pass the general knowledge. Carmelina, do you know, can you answer to that?
I'm not absolutely certain. I know that there are other requirements, and the districts vary on what those requirements are and how you can obtain them. So I think that's what I would look at on that one.
Okay, all right. So yeah, so that's something that I think is district by district as well. So if you have an idea of what district you want to work in, that would be one area. It's like, okay, I'm thinking of taking the Florida Teacher Certification Exam in DHH. What else would I need in order to be employed as a teacher of the deaf in your district? Mm-hmm. So if you do this apply to UNF, then that's going to take you, okay, so it says it's $38. Maybe it's not 35, but here, let's go down here. This is what you're doing. So you're applying as a post-baccalaureate non-degree seeking student, okay? And yes, it is, I guess, $30. And then this is the most confusing page. I'm still trying to find the answer to this. And I think I sort of calculated it, but I really say it with caution. I think the entire program, if you look at the cost of, because they are all listed at the undergraduate level. So that's also a really nice feature, is that even though you technically could be a graduate student, they're listed at the undergraduate level because it's the content that you need. And frankly, these courses, not all of the courses, but we transitioned our graduate program to undergraduate program. And I think that the rigor of these undergraduate classes prepare students to become master students, because we ask them to cite research, we ask them to do many of the things that a graduate student would do at the undergraduate level, because it's the rigor of the program. We just feel very, we are committed to preparing excellent teachers. And I think we've done an excellent job to this point, and with something that we're just not really willing to sacrifice. But the post-baccalaureate students I love having them in my classes because they do behave a lot like master students, and they're raising that bar for the other undergraduate students who are in the class and really challenging them to think a little bit differently and more in depth. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, Ruth, did that help? Did you find your second question?
Yeah, I was just wondering when the deadline was for applying, because can you apply for spring, or do you always have to apply starting fall?
Great question. It's rolling admission. So you can come into the program anytime. So I would apply now if you want to start in the spring. And then in the spring, there's just one class. So that's the Deafness and Diversity. And then once you're in the program, you're in the program. And then you'd have the 2 summer classes, and then you'd finish the two fall classes. So you can start anyway, you can skip a semester. I don't know if you'd have to reapply. I think you have a 1 semester waiver. I don't think you have to reapply if you missed 1 semester, but maybe 2 you'd have to reapply.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I keep forgetting questions, sorry.
No, and you can contact me anytime too. So don't feel like this is your only opportunity.
Yeah.
So one question that some students ask me, or prospective students, is about this idea of, is it entirely online? Are there any synchronous meetings? And so that's important. Mm-hmm. So it is entirely online. In the introductory course, I typically require students to come to an online session 1 time a month. I call them enrichment sessions. So the first session is really just to become familiar with me and discuss the syllabus. And it's like, it's very low stakes. And then in September, we talk about the communication plan, which is required of it has to be part of all students' IEPs and in their files, in their cumulative files. So we talk about, with RMTC's help, we talk about the communication plan. We go over all aspects of that and how to complete it so that you are prepared when you graduate from this program to complete a communication plan. In October, we invite parents to share about their experience having a child that's deaf or hard of hearing. And then this month, we will have 2 guest presenters, and it's this synchronous session. And it's in the evening time, so it usually doesn't conflict with students' schedules. And we have the first hour is designated to working with interpreters, and then the second hour is going to be dedicated to working with vocational rehabilitation counselors and what kind of resources the state of Florida has for students who are transitioning out of high school. So what I have done is recorded those sessions and allowed students who knew that they had a conflict to just watch that video, because there was something a legitimate reason why they could not attend that synchronous session. So all of the other classes that I know of are all online. So audiology, what we did this year, because we knew that the students weren't going to be able to physically observe audiologists, I just did lots of virtual interviews and interactive workshops. And then I told the students, choose which 3 of them you want to watch. You know, if you can't come to, choose 3 you want to come to. If you can't come to them, then just watch them. So it's very flexible. We again, accommodating online students, adult students, students who are on different time zones. You know, that is something that we keep in our mind, in the forefront of our mind when offering this program to students.
Okay, perfect. That actually was my question. So because
Oh,
I'm
really?
working full time right now in education, so that was my question for that.
Well, I love the interpreters that want to come become teachers. Come on, they're the perfect candidate.
Well, I love it because I was like, well, I can still interpret. I can still like go out in the community, but then this could be my regular thing. So I like the more I work
Absolutely.
in education, the more I wanted to be more involved. Like, because as interpreter, sometimes you're kind of limited. And so you're like, ah, I want to step in, but I can't. This is not my place. So that's kind of what changed my mind.
Yeah, that's perfect. And you know, go ahead, Carmelina.
I was getting a question for you, and then I had a question for Ruth, but go ahead, you go first.
Okay. Oh, you know, that's what we're seeing more and more. The students enrolling in this post-baccalaureate students are the interpreters, are the educational interpreters, because you oftentimes are expected to act like a teacher, but then haven't really had that training. And so this is, to me, meeting the need and hopefully reducing that critical shortage so that we get more qualified teachers working with students who are deaf and hard of hearing.
So my question to you, to Dr. Guardino was, so the online certificate program, participants are allowed to participate in your international travel. I'm curious about that. That's awesome.
Absolutely. And I tell all the students that graduate too, come back and come with me. Let's go. Like, it's okay. Like, because what happens is essentially students who graduate and then they find out about one of the international trips, they sign up as a post-bac student, they pay their $30 and then they just attend as a post-bac, you know, and it's like they sign up for the class as a post-bac, but that's the only class they take, you know. So the signing up for the course allows students to have that coverage from the university because they're traveling with us and we want to make sure that they've got that insurance. And it also gives them the verification if they go to say, look, I participated in this international travel and this practicum experience, you know, they will have a resume because they've registered and taken that class, which has been designed for international travel. So yes, come with us, Carmelina.
You see me, my wheels turning, right? So, and actually maybe it's not more of a question, but something that I think I want to mention. So if a student doesn't already have a bachelor's, but they're working in the field, the state of Florida has a program called Para to Pro, which will do tuition reimbursement. And so, and that's been around, but part of the challenge had been not having any online programs. How does someone from in a different location in Florida from UNF or Flagler participate in that? So with this online, I think that this should qualify. I mean, I would double check it, but it's definitely in the areas of vision and deaf, hard of hearing. So it'd be something to look into. But I was just researching it while we were chatting a little bit. And it is for someone that hasn't already had a bachelor's. They want their initial bachelor's degree. So, but I don't know if that would apply.
Wow, so that's great. So you're saying, so if someone is a paraprofessional, then I guess there's the potential for them to take the 5 classes. Okay, I have to look into that. That's interesting because
so yeah, we should look into that and then we can see if we can't utilize that better for our potential people. Yeah, but it looks like be currently employed as a paraprofessional, working with students with disabilities in Florida, public school or charter school, have your AA with an overall 2.5 GPA. You got to pass that general knowledge test before applying and then be admitted to a prep program. And then just the note was it's designed for those earning an initial bachelor's degree, not applicable if you're seeking a master's degree. But I still thought that was, worth sharing. I wanted to share that, so. And
okay, yeah, that's great. I'll look into that because we just started at UNF, the special education or exceptional student education program just started a Para to Pro program where they're having a cohort that's going to move through it. But they're not including deaf educators because we didn't we don't have enough of our classes online. I think it does really require you to have the bulk of the content online, because they would get through these 5 courses, but then I think they'd have to finish out their degree in special
Yeah,
education,
you're
right?
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's when you're right. So it would be to get the bachelor's, not the online certificate. But if they're offering it into tuition
Right.
reimbursement, then that would be, a path. So I guess that is something that we as a team,
Sure.
we can continue looking at, or we as a state should continue.
Right.
So, yeah.
Certainly. Thank you for sharing that. That's great.
Yeah.
Did you have a question for Ruth? I think you were going to ask her
Oh,
something.
no, that was
Okay.
basically, that was basically capturing what I was curious about. So I haven't taken the time to actually investigate that. So I'm glad that this got me to go over there and take a peek to see exactly how it worked. So yes.
Yeah, that's great. That's good. Yeah, now you've got my wheels turning.
Yep.
Well, let me just stop this recording. If are we okay with our questions? Okay, so I'll stop the recording, and then